wouldn't be playing right now if I didn't feel that I could compete at the very top. For a long time, I probably subconsciously, genuinely didn't believe that I was good enough to be top 5, top 8 in the world. No, I'm never going to be able to play like an Asal for sure, nor even like a Mohammed. But they're never going to be able to play like me. So yes, I do believe that I can win the Worlds or the Commonwealth Games or the Asian Games. I think COVID's been hard for everyone. It's been hard for me, and I'm sure it's been hard for just the normal kind of set of people as well. It's been difficult as squash players to kind of not have certainty and clarity as to when you will be playing, whether you're going to be able to get to events. So, for example, I couldn't play the British Open this year, which I felt really sad about. I've played the British every year, and I just couldn't get to England because of the restrictions between India and England. So I think that's been the hard part, and that's also caused a lack of continuity in terms of the tournaments you play and kind of the breaks that you have to get your training in and things like that. So it's been a lot to deal with and manage, but I think it's been a hard time, like I said, for everyone, and I'm glad the tour has kind of stayed afloat over this period, and a lot of credit has to go to the people working at the PSA and the promoters as well for making these events happen, because it's not easy for sure. In terms of the next year or so, I think the three big ones, which are kind of red letter kind of things in my calendar, would be the World Championships in Cairo next year, the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, and the Asian Games in China. I think those three, I think they're all in the space of like 3.5 months or so, 4 months, are like the priorities. Of course, I want to do well in the other events that I play in, but I think everything leads up to kind of doing well in those three events. The scheduling, the peaking, the mentality of what I want to achieve, everything goes into doing well in those three events. And I think I'm going to take it a couple of months at a time, not try to plan too far ahead. I do obviously want to play all the big ones, but I'll have to look at some sort of a window in which I can get a good training block in as well to prepare for that busy summer, because normally we have the summer off, but this year we haven't, and next year we're not gonna, so I'll have to find some sort of a block to get that in. But like I said, I think it's I'm gonna play it by ear and see how that goes. I'll have a kind of an idea as to what I want to do with my schedule up to June, but that's flexible based on how I'm feeling both physically and mentally. I wouldn't be playing right now if I didn't feel that I could compete at the very top. I'm just one of those people, like, I don't want to be floating around. The day I feel that I can't push any further or go higher up or beat the very top guys, I'll retire. I think ever since I turned 30, every year I sit down with myself and ask myself if I'm good enough to get there, or do I feel mentally and physically ready to push again? And only if that answer is yes, do I keep going. So yes, I do believe that I can win the Worlds or the Commonwealth Games or the Asian Games. I think it's obviously I need to set some precedents before in the other events that I play, and that's the focus. And hopefully I can do it. And then yeah, I mean, winning one of those would be very special, and it would be I think a very nice reward for all the work that I've put in through my entire career and not just over a couple of years. So yeah.
A player who's been around the top 20 in the world for so many years, someone that I've looked up to when I've started playing. And I guess the only question is, what do you think has held you back from pushing the top like 8 in the world and getting up to that
I
ranking
think
bracket?
I think for a long time I probably subconsciously genuinely didn't believe that I was good enough to be top 5, top 8 in the world. I think that's kind of changed a little bit over the last 3 to 4 years, especially after I started working with David Palmer. I think making the quarterfinals at the World Championships in Chicago in 2019 was a little bit of like a turning point mentally for me, to be able to do that with the injury stuff that I had just before the event, and to come back and to be able to perform at that level, it kind of made me believe that, what, if I can actually put my game together and trust in what I do, then I'm good enough in terms of executing against anyone in the world. I've come to a point where I realize that if I can keep my body in shape and mentally if I'm feeling fine, then I'm going to be a handful for anyone. And I think it's now a question of converting some really, really close matches into wins, and I think that can really spur me on. And hopefully I can start with that this week.
One thing that I've always thought is like you, skill-wise, accuracy-wise, like squash-wise, you wouldn't put many people above you in that category. But the way that the top 10 is kind of shaped and the top 8, it seems to be more about like aggression, physicality. Look at Asal's just gone straight through, shabagging the brothers. Do you think if you had that kind of aggression in your game, you would be, difficult to say obviously, but
I mean, look,
do you look at those guys and think, I don't want to play like that? Is that a conscious thing?
I mean, look, I think there are so many ifs and buts, right? Like, I wish I was half a foot taller. I wish I was, 50% more power. I wish I had Muhammad's forehand, right? There's so many things that you wish you had. I think if you think about all of that, then you're just going to be thinking of that, and you're going to feel like, oh my God, I have nothing. But I do have a lot, and I think it's a question of understanding what you're very good at. And no, I'm never going to be able to play like an Asal for sure, nor even like a Muhammad. But they're never going to be able to play like me. And I think it's about leveraging what I am really good at and using that to the best of my ability to produce the best squash that I can produce. I think I've also been brought up with someone like a Malcolm Wilstrop, who's always been very insistent on behaving properly and respecting people. Aggression doesn't always mean, puffing your chest out and doing fist pumps and things like that. Aggression can purely be very internal, being very, very clinical in what you do and hitting your marks consistently. And I think it's about finding the right balance. And I think if we can, let's say, if I can produce the squash that I can produce, behaving correctly and doing it the right way, then I'm going to go down in history as a more likable world number 1, world number 2, or whatever it is, than some of the other guys. And I think that's very important to me as well.